There could be no pass for anti-Semitism. There could be no pass for people who speak about Israel as a evildoer who spread blood libels. And anybody who steps across that line should never be tolerated inside of our party, our nation, our understanding of how it is we have to treat our fellow human beings. And so whether that anti-Semitism comes from a radical woke leftist who's now going to be the mayor of New York City, or it comes from a talking head who sits on the right, we must call each of them out for what they are.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Western Spirit. I'm Ariel Whitman, and today with me is someone very special, one of my American heroes, Secretary of State, former director of the CIA, former congressman, and someone who I think we can all agree, at least people who agree with me, that he's one of the foremost leaders and statesmen that came out of the U.S., and he's someone who we all look up to in Israel. So Secretary of State, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, true honor and privilege to speak with you here.
Ariel, it's great to be with you again.
So
Thanks
Secretary,
for the kind words.
for sure, it's an honor to speak with you. We have all the hostages back in Israel now, and we are looking to see if the next phase of the 20-point plan will materialize. Yesterday, Israel attacked in Gaza, bombed a few places in response to Hamas violating aspects of the deal, shooting inside the yellow line, and all this kind of stuff. How much do you think, what are the chances that Israel doesn't need to go back in and that Hamas demilitarizes without the idea of having to go back into Gaza?
Yeah, the probability of that is very low, it seems to me. Hamas is a resistance movement by its very nature. It exists for the sole and singular purpose of the destruction of the nation of Israel and conduct terror campaigns against its own people too, for that matter. So no reason to think that they will change, that their ideology will change. It's deeply embedded. I'm hopeful that the security force that's contemplated in the 28-point agreement, or 20-point agreement rather, I'm hopeful that there's a solution there that can be built out. But as best I can tell, nobody to date has agreed to do anything more than sort of what I'll call a traditional peacekeeping role. That is, no one to date has signed up for disarming Hamas or keeping Hamas at bay, or everyone wants to describe that. I think of it as keeping Hamas from having the capability to continue its terror campaigns against the Israeli people, against the nation of Israel. That's going to be largely the work of the IDF. And I have every expectation that the Israeli leadership understands that. They get it as well. And so we also saw strikes into Beirut where they went after Hezbollah leadership. I think the mindset pre-October 6th is no longer anywhere inside the Israeli leadership. From left to right, I don't view this as deeply political. I know there's a lot of politics in Israel. I don't view this as that. This is about sovereignty and security for Israel, and I think Israel will still carry the heavy load of keeping their own people safe.
So just following up, if you had to, I guess, ballpark it, you think that it's most likely that the IDF will have to go back in and seriously fight Hamas again into the last remaining, I guess, strongholds in the major cities like Khan Yunis and Gaza City and all these places that haven't been 100% cleaned out yet, right?
So I don't know if it will require large forces in the same way that the previous campaign did. That's a operational tactical level decision that Israeli leadership will have to make. But if you ask, are they going to continue to have to do all the intelligence work, all the, I'll call it pacification work, that is trying to de-Hamasify the people of Gaza? And are they going to have to go find a tool, whether that's small units deployed in, out over short periods of time, or will they have to move in back heavy force? I don't know the answer to that. But if you ask the question, is there still more work to be done to disarm Hamas, and will that end up falling largely to the IDF to conduct those campaigns? I think the answer is highly probable yes. I wish there were others that could go do it, because I think that'd be a good solution, but there's don't appear to be any volunteers yet.
Yes, my friends that are going to go to reserves for like another 100 days next year are agreeing with you. I want to ask also about Saudi Arabia. So you were in the first Trump administration that brokered the Abraham Accords, which were really historic. There was a big expectation that Saudi Arabia would join at some point. And it seems that a lot of October 7th had to do with the worried by Hamas and its, I guess, masters in Tehran and other areas that it was getting close and we need to do something. But the Mohammed bin Salman was just in Washington, and Israeli IDF officials have leaked that there's problems with the F-35 sales, that we're worried about losing Israel's military edge, and the other leaks about expanding the Abraham Accords with normalization with the Saudis is that they want a clear pathway to a Palestinian state. So, what do you think Israel should be willing to give to the Saudis, and how worried should we be that they're getting a lot of these stuff up front without giving anything towards the normalization?
Yes, I actually wouldn't be overly worried about that. Uh, I think the QME stuff, the military edge stuff, is it's very technical. I was deeply involved in it when we went through the Abraham Accords with the Emirati government, and so very technical. But I think you can. I think that's manageable. Second, there is this political idea about a Palestinian state. I must say, in my private conversations with Middle Eastern leaders, and that's business leaders, not just government leaders, business leaders, it's a broad range of people. Everyone gets that there's no way that you're going to have a full-blown Palestinian state anytime soon. Like nobody has there's no expectation that part of this 20-point plan will be a conclusion where the nuttiness of what the French and the Brits did, right? Recognizing Palestine. That's not going to happen because you can't have until you get through the first question about de-Hammasification, right? You can't even contemplate building back a political governance structure in either Judea or Samaria or in Gaza until you get that piece right. And I think the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is realistic about that. What they're trying to manage is the expectations of their own people, and then of course what we would all love to see, which is a peaceful peoples in both Judea and Samaria and Gaza that no longer threatened Israel, nor was it controlled by Tehran. And maybe that's the best way to round this question out. This the set of challenges is really a Tehran-centered set of challenges, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Jerusalem are on the same side in that conflict. And the risk to Riyadh or Jeddah or to Mecca and Medina comes from Tehran, not from Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. And everyone in the region gets that. And so we all have to find a way to expand on the Abraham Accords model, maybe not the Abraham Accords themselves, but that model, which understands the risk being Iran and its proxy terrorists in the region.
So, you think that? Do you think that there'll be in the next 3 years of this administration an actual deal, if not a full normalization of maybe economic or military cooperation or something? Because that's what's being talked about behind the scenes that I
Yeah,
understand.
I think that's if you maybe probability adjust a prediction, and it's hard to do predictions because things happen. But if you ask me to probably yes, what you'll see is a continued expansion of the relationship and a continued acknowledgement that Israel has this fundamental right to exist, which is at the core of the Abraham Accords. And so, I do think you'll see continued path. By the way, not just from the kingdom. I think you'll see it from other large countries that have significant Muslim populations as well. We saw Kazakhstan, but think Malaysia, Indonesia. Think the relationship between Saudis and Pakistanis, right? The security arrangement they've achieved. You can imagine this expanding in ways that are really important for Israel, for the Gulf Arab states, and of course for America. I always think about this from our perspective. The more we can get this right, the more prosperous the Israeli people will be, the more prosperous the Gulf Arabs will be. And that just takes down an awful lot of risk for the United States of America as well.
Yes. I was here during the war with Iran. And the It was amazing. First of all, it was like, I don't have a bomb shelter, so we kept on rushing the kids down and up and down. And I have three kids, ages 3 and under, so it was a challenge.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, but at the end of it, you were like, we were really proud, I think, and I think we should be, about my friends in the Air Force, and it was really amazing everything that was done here and what the U.S. helped finish off, so to speak, the crescendo, the icing on the cake. But we hear now that there's lots of intel reports that the Iranians are looking to rebuild, that they're rebuilding a lot of the missile technology that they lost, the stockpiles they're trying to rebuild. Um, And there's different rumors that I keep on hearing all over the place that maybe Israel wants to go back in. They'll in under different conditions. Israel has told the U.S. I've read a few reports in American media that there are conditions that would make Israel want to respond. How do you think that's true in any case? How badly were they hit? Do they would they want to take the chance of trying to rebuild some of their programs?
So I'll give you two answers. First, much like Hamas, the Ayatollah and his henchmen aren't going to turn over a new leaf. Zero probability event. These are not peaceful people. These are not. It is foolish to think about them deciding to rejoin the Western model of the world. And so, will they try to rebuild? Will they try to figure out what the right strategy is? What's the timeline? How fast should they go? Should they build the missile program? All those are decisions that they're working their way through now, having been literally pushed in a way that I think no one anticipated. And your point about being proud is a valid one. You all should be incredibly proud of what you accomplished. With respect to the nuclear program, President Trump used the term obliterated. I'm not sure. Obliterated is a very, very strong word, but it's close. It it was. This wasn't, oh, we set the back an hour or a month or 6 months. This was a material degradation of their capacity to have the full chain of tool sets that you need to have a weapons program, a nuclear weapons program. It was the Israelis, you all did the really good hard work at the front end. What the United States did mattered. It was material. It set them back even further. There's no doubt about that. And the work that was done together is remarkable. And that is a really good thing. It doesn't mean we can rest on our laurels and think for a single second that somehow they learned their lesson. We've all seen how they learn their lessons. They learn their lessons in ways that lead to things like October 7th. And we should never again allow any of our nations to be put at risk that they could pull off something either like that or at a scale like that anywhere in the world, whether that's in Israel or in the United States or in Europe or in the Gulf. We need to continue to put pressure on. That may mean at some point that the Israelis and the Americans need to go back at this again. I think we've got pretty good eyes on. I think we're now eyes wide open. I think we've got pretty good intelligence collectively. I think we'll know when they do it, and we'll know when the right time is to go take it down. And that's the glory of deterrence. The fact that the Iranians surely know that we know that as well will cause them to be more cautious and more careful, and give us each more time to continue to live our lives without having to go do that again.
By the way, on a personal level, it was reported that you were they were looking to assassinate you, if I remember correctly. I'm just thinking about it. Did you feel personally like happy about what was happening? That they were, I was just starting to think of it. Someone wants to get you, and they're being destroyed, all
Yeah.
their leadership and their scientists, and you're
Uh,
like, this is.
you
Was there anything
one
personal for you?
I think you would agree with this. As a Jew or as a Christian, we never celebrate the death of anyone. We love all our brothers, but the fact that these folks are gone is a good thing for all of us. And I concede, I am not unbiased. The Iranians are still trying to kill me. They still are pursuing a handful of us who were in the Trump administration. And so, yes, the work that can be done to keep everyone safe, including me and my family, is both a good thing and a decent thing. And it doesn't bring joy. It brings a renewed understanding that we're the good guys in this thing, and we are trying to help not just ourselves, and even not just our own nations, but humanity be in a better place. And that's a glorious thing, as taught both in the Torah and in the Bible.
I agree. Three small questions. One of the things that in Israel is a big political issue, but it has repercussions, is the how we should treat the Qatari government. And we keep on hearing, like, on the one hand, they gave money to Hamas, and Hamas leadership is there, but on the other hand, we were negotiating through them to Hamas all this time. And on
Yeah,
the one hand, and then President Trump goes in and loves them, and they're meeting in his plane, and he gets the plane, and every time there's criticism of Qatar, Steve Witkoff says no, they're great, and Kushner says no, they're great, and the president obviously says no, they're great. So how do you look at Qatar and their, like, when you were there, how did you look at Qatar and how do you look at them today? What is their role? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they really neutral? How do they? What's going on here?
yeah. So, my experience set with them, they helped us when we were trying to find our way through Afghanistan. They led the meetings when we were meeting with the Taliban, trying to find a better place. Look, I think this is true with every nation. It has its own interests. Qatar has its own interests as well. For a period of time, we all worked with the Qataris to try and find a modality with Hamas, right? And so they were our intermediary. And in the end, it didn't work. It worked for a period, but it didn't work forever. And now we need to find new modalities with every nation, not just the Qataris. I would say that more broadly. Think of the Turks. Think of Iraq. We don't speak of Iraq very often. Think of the challenges now that there's a fellow who was on the U.S. designated terror list, now the leader in Syria, right on the Israeli border. So these complexities are enormous, and the two things we just need to keep our eye on, it seems to me, are never forget that risk isn't going away. That whatever deterrence we have as we sit here today is temporary. It's not permanent. You have got to continue to maintain the capacity to inflict sufficient harm on your adversaries that you can deter them from coming at you. That's the quintessential element that we all need to keep in mind. And that's with respect to every nation. Lastly, and I know we've got to run, don't forget, these don't sit in isolation. The Russians are working closely with the Iranians. The Chinese are now supporting Putin in Ukraine. This alliance between China and Russia, I would call them these folks who intend evil and don't care about basic human rights, basic property rights, basic human dignity. We have a duty to continue to defend ourselves and to work with countries that have shared interests, even if sometimes we have a different view of things, to deliver those outcomes for our own people. And I think if the tragedy of October 7th will perhaps lead us all to more fundamental understanding that risk remains.
Shalom, Israeli friends. I'm Nikos from the Ayn Rand Institute. For 2 years now, you have been told that your grief doesn't matter, that your struggle to survive is a, quote, genocide. And you've been told that you must sacrifice yourselves for those who wish to destroy you. So it's time we asked, what kind of ideas produce such poisonous views? What motivates those who stand with your wannabe destroyers? And I know something about all this, because for decades I used to believe those same anti-Israel myths. But some years ago I decided to focus on the truth instead. And since then I've been committed to fighting by your side. On December 19th, join me and a group of speakers who will make the case for Israel's right to exist more forcefully than you've ever heard before. Click the link to register. Remember, soldiers and students attend for free. See you in Tel Aviv.
Can I one small question before you run about
Sure,
the
of course,
U.S.?
yes, sir.
My father's
Yeah.
a resident of New York City, and I grew up in Hasidic community in Brooklyn, New York, although I don't look like that today. And I look at my former hometown, and I look on the left wing of the U.S. politics, and it's scary. And in the last a year or so on the right, on some parts of the right, and it's very scary also.
Yeah.
What is your message to, I guess, on the left, we all understand, I consider myself conservative. You're obviously conservative. What do you say to people who thought that the right of America was our friends? And we hear and see, we don't need to get into names, but you know, and I know who
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
What is your message to Jewish conservatives in the U.S.?
My message is this. Sometimes because they share our conservative views on many issues and we think about things the same way, we give them a pass. We say, well, it's a big tent. There can be no pass. There could be no pass for anti-Semitism. There could be no pass for people who speak about Israel as a evildoer who spread blood libels or who play footsie with those who do exactly that. There's no space for that. Zero. And I can invite many people into the Republican Party that I want to be part of, the conservative movement, who I agree with 80% of the time, or 60 or 90, who share my fundamental core beliefs. Those beliefs are at the center of the conservative view. The fact that every human being is created in the image of God. They are shared broadly, and our Judeo-Christian tradition matters. And anybody who steps across that line, and we can debate who has, but anybody who steps across that line should never be tolerated inside of our party, our nation, our understanding of how it is we have to treat our fellow human beings. And so whether that anti-Semitism comes from a radical woke leftist who's now going to be the mayor of New York City, or it comes from a talking head who sits on the right, who was welcomed into the salons of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. We can't. We must call each of them out for what they are, and that is people who don't share our core understandings about human beings and a God as our creator. And that matters a lot. We all have an obligation to get that right, even when it's uncomfortable.
Secretary Mike Pompeo, true honor and privilege. You're a friend of the Jewish people and of the state of Israel. And I truly, and I think all Israelis truly appreciate you. And I thank you so much for speaking with us.
Ariel, bless you. Thank you. Have a great day.